can see your screen.
Okay, great. Right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning if you're in the States. So, as Hazel said, you don't know, I'm going to be running you through push notification app building today. And what I'm going to do, just to start off with, is to give an overview of the way push notifications work at a very high level. If you look at my screen now, you'll actually see part of our user guide, and we've taken quite a lot of trouble to document the whole process very thoroughly. So I'm going to be following fairly closely the contents of this user guide. The URL, I will actually, just to make this nice and simple, I'm just going to send this through over through the chat window. So if anybody wants to sort of go to this straight away afterwards, they can. Hazel, I'll just send this to you. Perhaps you can just forward it on to everyone. So yeah, let's start with a quick overview. I think everybody knows what a push notification is in general. There's an example of that on the screen right now. So there are, depending on how you set it up on your iPhone, I'm showing sort of iPhone in general here. You can get the sort of the pop-up type here. Or lower down on the screen, you'll see the one that appears at the top of the screen. Just going to go a little bit further down, and here we've got a sort of a fairly simple high-level overview of what happens. Once you've built your app, typically using AC Mobile Build within Application Craft, once you've distributed that, people will install it, and upon installation, what happens is each individual instance of that app is registered with the Xtify database. So Xtify is the partner that we use for push notifications, so they have a complete system, and I'm going to be showing you that in just a second. So as I said, when you install an app, it gets registered in their database. So once that's done, you're able to do all sorts of things through the Xtify console or through apps that you build which access the API. You can send out notifications through the API. As I'll be showing you in a moment, you can not just send sort of straightforward notifications, but you can also send out intelligent notifications, for instance, based on where somebody is currently located, or you can tag each of these individual instances with data that they've maybe entered or in their settings screens or whatever, and you can then send those tags to the database as well. So then within the Xtify console, you can send notifications to people with specific tags. When you're ready to send those messages, what happens, you don't really need to know this, but just to complete the picture, is the Xtify system actually sends via the Apple or the Google servers, and they actually do send out the message. So normally there's a very short delay of, sometimes 1 second, sometimes up to, I've never seen more than about a minute. And then those notifications arrive on the device. So I'm going to switch over now to a different screen, and I'm going to show you the Xtify console. So this is once you've signed up for your account with Xtify, this is the thing that you're going to use for the sort of general admin of your app, as well as, if you want, the actual sending out of the notifications. So the first thing you'll actually do is to create an app. So here, for instance, we've got 3 that are created, and this is the one, the FM push demo is the one I'm going to be playing around with today. So each time you build a new application, you're going to set up an entry here. This is also platform specific. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of the beast that we have Android and iOS, so these are handled differently, slightly differently. So if I look at the settings of my FM push demo, you can see we can give it a name, a description, whether it's production or development. And I also have to upload a certificate file. That certificate file is generated from within the Application Craft system, and I'll come to that in a minute. So that's the first thing you do, is you set up one of those, an app, and then you get this application key. And it's important that you note down your application key. You'll be using that also within your Application Craft app. Once you've set up your apps, you're then ready to start pushing out messages. There are different ways you can do this through the Xtify console. I can go to the push point manager, and this lets me, first of all, select the app that I want to push my notifications to. I can then configure the message that should go out, what should happen when that notification arrives. There are typically sort of two standard notification types that you use. There's the sort of the basic one, which will just appear on your pop-up, but there's also the possibility to send out rich notifications. So with that, you can send, if I just select that, you'll see lower down my screen, here I can put in any sort of HTML, and that will allow me to embed images, videos, whatever I like really. So it's, as the word says, a richer experience once the user clicks on the open button. For the more simple ones, we typically select open application, and then when the user clicks on the button in the application, so I can specify here my button label, that would open up the application. And we'll see in a moment how you actually deal with the data that's passed into that application if you want to. So that's the sending out of notifications in the standard format. Xtify also offers some more advanced stuff. I mentioned earlier on location-based notifications. So what we can do here is I can go to the locations option, and I can define any number of locations. I've just defined 2 here. If I click on one to edit it, you'll see here I've defined the location called Binton. I give that a name, and if I want a description, and that's now added up. So you just search, rather like searching Google Maps. It's very quick and easy. So I can set up any number of locations, and then I can, if I want, I could sort of, if 4 locations belong to a group, I could define a location group. And now what I'm ready to do is to set up my, my rules. So if I come to the Target Manager, what we'll see now is 2 rules that have been defined. So the location-specific one is here called Binton Test Message. If I click on the Edit button, the first thing you'll see is the message setup. So that's rather like the other one I showed you a moment ago. The pop-up content, button label, you can increment badge counters, and what should happen when the user clicks on it, open or rich, as I explained before. So that's the message. Now here are the rules. So what I do is I drag down, I can have different rule types. For a location-based notification, you need at least a location and a window. If I click on Edit, you'll see here that I've got a selected location of within a radius of 160,000 meters. You don't set it up quite like that. You set it up in terms of miles or kilometers. So I've got it within 10 miles of the Binton location. Obviously, I can add more and more locations if I want. And then I have what's called a window. And the window just says at what times should that rule be active, should that location be notification go out. So a date range, only certain days of the week or only within certain time periods. And then what you'd often do as well is to add, for instance, a frequency rule. And the frequency rule would limit the number of messages that each user gets. So here I can say no more than 1 message per day, for instance. So that just makes sure you don't spam your users. So that is the location-based setup, pretty straightforward. And now whenever a user moves to within a certain distance of, or within that radius of the location, a notification will automatically get sent out. The other rule that I defined here was, this is uses the tagging approach. As I said, if your app collects, for instance, information on whether your user is male or female or any other bits of data that you want, we use that tagging system that I briefly explained. And so here what I can say is, if I want to send out notifications just to male users, there's my message set up again. And then we've also got the rules. So there's the frequency, so I don't spam them. Here then is the tag rule. So it's very simple. I can just say has tagged male, or I can have multiple tags. And there's also here a schedule opportunity. So the scheduling lets me just send this out at a specific time. I can also do things like fan out so they don't go all over, they don't go at the same time. So generally speaking, you can see that Xtify offers some really great configuration options for different types of messaging. There are also other options which I'm not going to go into now for sort of measuring response, so stats and reports basically on users' interaction with your app. So that is the, if you like, the messaging part, the Xtify part. Now I'm going to take you across into the actual app itself, and we'll look at it in reasonable detail at an application. This application, by the way, is available in that user guide. You'll see something called example app at the very bottom of that section. You can download that and install it into ApplicationCraft. So the first thing is, because we use PhoneGap as the way of compiling these apps, what we're going to do is to just make a couple of PhoneGap settings initially. So if I select the app properties here, what you'll need to do is to make sure you give your applications a unique name. Unlike with other apps where you could say com.fm.star, with push notifications, each individual application must have a unique application ID. So that's very important. The other thing that's important is you can specify here geolocation is true if you want to use the location-based capabilities. Using AC Mobile Build. And then typically what will happen is you'll make lots of changes to your app, and no doubt you're going to have bugs. So with debug mode on, what you can do and make the changes in your app, press the save button up here, and then all you need to do is to reload the app on your phone, and it will actually load itself, load the core, if you like, from the ApplicationCraft server. So just by pressing save, you're actually updating the app on your mobile phone, and that will save you a huge amount of time. The only other thing you need to do at the setup level really is to go to the AC Build plugins option, and if I select that, you'll see these are the available plugins we have at the moment, and here's the Xtify push notifications. You just enable that here. And you can also plug in, if you like, your iOS app key and your Android keys. That can save you time in a couple of instances. But really the key thing here is to just enable the Xtify push notification plugin. Right, so at that point what we would recommend you do is you just go and do a test build. Make sure that your application, you can build it and distribute it. The way that's done for those who haven't used AC Mobile Build before is, I'm just going to show you the screen from our console. Here's our push app. I come to AC Mobile Build and select that. As you can see at the moment we support Android and iOS. Windows is about to be added as well, Windows Phone. And this is where you do all of your, we can actually generate certificates ourselves. So rather than having to use the really quite complex, painful manual means of generating certificates, usually from sort of the terminal window or command line, we've actually integrated this into our server. So I'm not going to go into this in detail now because it'll distract us from the, the actual push side of things. But basically, this is where you, once you've got those set up, this is where you build your app. So you press build, rebuild, and 30 seconds or a minute later you have your binary. You can point your QR code scanner on your phone at this and it will download and install it. And as I said, using debug mode, you don't actually have to do anything else. You can just, from that point on, just press save in your app designer and restart the app on your phone to reload the changes. Okay, so we've now got to the point where we're ready to start thinking about the push-specific stuff. Probably the simplest way to explain this initially is just to go back to the documentation, and I will show you a screen here. Let me just get that. Okay, well hopefully that's coming up now. It's with me, but there's sometimes a bit of a delay. So what this shows you is the code that you need to stick into your ApplicationCraft app. In fact, the only thing that you need is this line here, so xdefy.init. That's the only thing that you really have to do if you want to be in a position to receive a notification. So if you're not doing any geolocation stuff, you're not adding any intelligence to your app, just stick that in there, and that's all you need to do, nothing else. However, if you want to go to the next step, typically what you'll do, especially if you're passing in data, you can pass in, for instance, custom JSON object, and you can also access the various bits of data that are sent with a push notification. So what I can do is I can register a callback function. So here, for instance, I've got at the top here, I've got my own user-defined callback function called notification received, and I just register that with xdefy.startedCallback equals notification received. What I can also do is operate in test mode. So it's often really nice to be able to test stuff out on your desktop as opposed to on the phone. And so what we've done is we've allowed you to register a test XID. I'll come on to that in a second, but the XID is the unique identifier of the installed app. So you can register that, as well as your iOS and Android keys, and then tell it that you want to behave as if it's being sent from an iOS platform. These things are entirely optional, but the app I'm going to show you uses these. Yep, so that's really the skeleton and a bit more, and a bit of meat on it as well. So now let's go into the actual app, and I'll talk you through what we've done here. The first thing is if I go into the code mode, and I'll scroll down a little bit. Here you can see at the bottom the same stuff that I showed you there, more or less. xdefy.init, our test stuff, our test keys, and the callback function notification received. And if I scroll up a bit, here is the very ugly, not very clever notification received callback function. And all this is doing is it's grabbing data and dumping it into a log window inside my app. So what you can also see from here is the way that we are pulling the data out of the object that's sent with the notification. So for instance, xdefy.notification.content, that is the message content that's sent and will appear in the pop-up window on the phone. The action, that would be something like URL or rich if it's a rich notification. There's some platform-specific stuff here which you don't that often use. And if you add a JSON object as custom data, this is just reading that out and displaying it in the log. So this isn't doing very much, but if you did want to take certain actions based on the data sent with the notification, this is typically where you do it. Excuse me, drink of water needed now. Let me go back to the screen, and what I'll tell you about now is, for instance, how we do the location-based handling. So I talked about that situation where if a user moves within a certain range of a location, you want to send out a notification. Well, there are two ways that we can deal with this. One is typically used for debugging, and the other is used for production mode. So lfix, what that's doing is I'm using this in test mode. I'm sending a fixed coordinate to the xdefy system. So that way, I know I'm basically simulating somebody being at a particular place. If we go and look at the code for that, you'll see here is the lfix. So if I'm just looking at the label, if it's lfix, and here you can see xdef. This is one of the first sort of API call I'm going to make, xdefy.location.update. And there are the two coordinates, the latitude and the longitude coordinate, and then a callback function once that's succeeded or failed. However, if we want to do it on an automated basis, so that means I want the phone to get its current location, then you just don't specify those two parameters. You just leave them as undefined, and that will automatically get the GPS coordinates and pass those in the same way. Now what I can do is I can actually run this app now, And this uses the debug mode that I was talking about before. So by setting up my application keys in the app started function, when I now press the lfix command, it's now made that API call, and at some point, as I said, it can take seconds or a minute, that will ping in on my phone. Now, what we also have in here is some of the other API commands that we've exposed. And so, for instance, tagging. So I can get tags. So if I click on get tags, that's now retrieving for the current application instance, so using this test XID in this case, the tags, which are A, B, C, and male. I can also add new tags, completely rewrite the tags, clear them, delete them, get a complete tag list of all tags in the entire application. And you can also see underneath here that we've got, you can also send messages if you want via using an API call. So you don't have to use the Xtify console. So if I click here on send message, that is just in the background sending out a message. I'm going to show you the code for this in a moment. So that's gone out. I could also send a rich notification if I want. Or I could send to certain tags. So the same one as through the Xtify console again. So let's go and have a quick look at the code for that. That's actually on page 2. So I'll just run you through a couple of those. You can see it's very easy indeed. We've made this as easy as we can. So xtify.tag.read, that gets the tags for the current user. Then you can see here, this would add a new tag to whatever tag currently exists. In this case, it's adding the tag male. I'm setting there 3 tags, A, B, C. Here I'm deleting a tag. That one there I'm removing all tags, and so on. And if I go a little bit lower down, here you'll see the way we send out push notifications. Xtify.push.quick notification. That is now sending out a notification to one or more specific XIDs. So here I've got sending it to my test XID. That's the text that will appear in the notification content area. That's the button label. And then over to the right, we've got, there's the action and any custom data that you want to send. So if I go down a bit further, this one here, that line 57, is doing the same, but it's sending it, instead of just to an XID, it's sending it to all users of this application. It doesn't need a second parameter because it's going to all. The match, the button, and here's a bit of custom JSON data that's being passed into the app. In that case, your init function, callback function would actually do something with that data probably. And if I look at the one below, on line 61, here we're sending it just to certain users with certain tags. So quick notification and then tags is the first parameter. I pass in here with an object with tags, an array of tags that we want that must be present, and without tags if we want to exclude users with certain tags. So that's the tagging option. And then lastly, we've got here on line 64 how you send a rich notification. So what I have to do here is set up an object. I'm calling this rich data. The subject as normal. This is the rich notifications have individual subjects. The message content, this is now the HTML content. So you can see here I've got an HTML tag in there. And then any extra data that I want in the action object. All of this is described very well in Xtify's own API documentation. And in our documentation, we also point out where we think it's commonly used, and we also link you then to Xtify's documentation. Just a quick word, something that came up I think was quite interesting in the last, we did one of these webinars last week. And one thing that's worth pointing out is that in many situations you might have your own back-end server processes, server systems, which are, they have their own database, obviously, which is used in association with these apps in some way. So you might sort of, for instance, store all of your customers or users with any data that it happens to store, but you want to somehow associate that with your app users. So all you need to do is, when your app is running, is you would just pass in the XID, that's the unique ID, to your back-end databases via your own API, your own REST API typically. And now you've got that important unique bit of information. So if you then, with your own server-side systems, wanted to run processes that send out notifications, you can do so in just the same way as I was showing you here with the quick notification. The difference is you just go directly then to the Xtify APIs. So if you want to look at those, if I go back to the Xtify system, to the console, in here there are, for instance, implementation guides, and if I click on that, I think that's the right one. Actually, maybe it was the other one probably. Let me just go to API details. Yeah, so here are all the different APIs. So the push notification API, for instance, is there, the second line down. So your own server-side systems can access these directly, and that gives you the flexibility to really kind of build any types of solutions that you want. So yeah, so I think that probably, I'm just going to quickly go back and make sure I haven't left out anything important. I think what I could just, the last thing finish up showing you is the way that you can receive and process a rich notification. Actually, I won't. No, I won't. I think otherwise I'm going to overload people with information. That's all in the documentation anyway. So I think probably what I'll do is call it a day there and hope that I've covered everything well enough at least so that you're familiar now with some of the key concepts and some of the important bits of functionality that we offer and Xtify offer. From a support perspective, if you are looking for support on the building the actual AC applications, then come to us for support because we've done our own APIs, and so it's best to come to us. If it's anything to do with, which is really to do with the console or anything to do with your account, then go to Xtify directly. Great. Well, I think on that note, what I'll do is I will hand over to Michael Bordash. Michael, are you there, or Hazel? Can you switch over?
Hi, I'm here. I'm online. So can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, Michael.
As can I.
Fantastic. Great. So thanks again for letting me participate in this webinar. I think this is very helpful for not only people that want to build applications in general that include push, but a great showcase of what application craft can do with respect to building a professional application that includes rich notifications and push notifications powered by Xtify. Basically, just to give you a walkthrough, we're a 4-year-old company. We have SDKs and we have services that are geared towards making, allowing you, the developer or the marketer, to connect with your mobile users as they've installed your application on their phone. So what we provide is a way to intelligently target and send communications that are relevant to that user that has said, yes, I want to receive opt-in notifications from you, and I'm very interested in your brand. So what I did today was sort of select a couple of slides that give you an idea of what some of our customers are actually doing with push notifications, and hopefully this will give you some inspiration in terms of what you can do in your own experience, or kind of what are the services you want to bring forward to your end users. So first and foremost, it's a way for you to direct your customers or your users to a store, if you operate a store, or to an e-commerce site, or back into your application, so you keep them coming for more. The dirty little secret with mobile applications is that I think 65% never get opened after the first time. So push becomes a very, very important part of your development life cycle to make sure that users are coming back and using your application so they don't uninstall it. But you also want to make sure you're not overburdening your users with push, and you want to create value in that communication point wherever possible. So for example, here, if you're a fan of Sons of Anarchy, you may get show updates prior to the next broadcast of their show on Fox. They'll also send you some coupons and coupon codes down to your device for those active users that want to get merchandise from their app itself. So Fox, for example, has chosen us to distribute push notifications for pretty much all of their shows. Sons of Anarchy is the first one, and they'll be going up for others. You also have an ability to inform customers, and that's where the rich notification can come in. As Freddie mentioned before, the rich notification option allows you to send down, like the name suggests, rich media down to the device itself, such as clearly stylized text, images, coupons, maps, photos, video, QR codes, what have you. A lot of our customers use this to send down coupons, which are then redeemable in the store. Probably two of our most popular customers that do that are American Eagle Outfitters. They're a very high user of push, and Staples, who went live back in December, that directs people into their stores. So coupons are a very effective way to keep your customer engaged, providing value for those customers and getting them to do something with your app or within your store itself. Another important concept is that just by the simple act of someone installing your application, that is just enough to send messages down to your users. So unlike email, where you have to actually collect an email address or collect a telephone number to SMS people, once the person is installed, if Xtify is embedded within the Application Craft app, then you have an ability to message your customers and get them to do something. So it's a very way to simply get a message out to your users again. What we also do is offer a variety of different ways to interact with iOS technology. We recently introduced Passbook, which can be used in conjunction with our push services. So you can not only send messages, rich messages down to your phone, but you can also use our Passbook management system to send down passes to iOS. There are some options in Android coming down the pipe soon, but it's a way for us to, another channel for getting your message down to your device. And we're going to introduce Passbook with Application Craft in a subsequent webinar. Like Freddie mentioned before, we have a lot of customers in the hospitality industry. We have the top 3 major hotel brands that have adopted Xtify's SDKs and console to drive location-relevant content. So, for example, if you're booked at the Ritz-Carlton, for example, and you have the application installed, they can send you direct information from the specific hotel you're staying at with a customized message from the manager, like here's a concierge number, here's some local deals that may be interested for partnerships or any sponsored messaging of that sort. And it becomes a very valuable tool to create very relevant, highly relevant content for that particular person, even when the app is closed. We also incorporate some retention features as well. This, as we mentioned before, 55%, I think I said 65, but actually 55% of users open the app less than 4 times. So we have a variety of different retention and lifecycle tools that will enable you to send reminders to open the application. So you can set up a lifecycle rule that will automatically send a message down 15 days after they first install or 15 days after the last time they've opened the application. We do track all those statistics. And in so doing, you can entice them to come back with some offers, or you really send out a hey, thanks for downloading, rate me now, rate my application now. So far is a very good user of that, or another one of our prolific pushers of Xtify services. Another way that customers use this, Paxson is probably a good example. You can build dynamic messages, especially if you're capturing that XID. So if you know that user is a male or a female or interested in sports or T-shirts or whatever you might want to be selling to your end users, because you have the information, you can customize and tailor the message for that particular audience, and it does very well for driving a particular message to a particular segment of your users to take action. Like Freddie mentioned before, we track real-time statistics in our service. So as your messages are sent, you can see those statistics. You can see those messages going out in a measure tool. We also provide you with the open rate, the action rate, and the share rate if those tools are implemented. And this will give you direct insight into how effective your messaging is. For example, if your open rate is less during one campaign versus another, potentially the time that you sent it out or the content itself could be a factor in terms of the actual action that was taken. We also have a new series of reports coming out that give you full details into opt-in, opt-out, as well as push-enabled, push-disabled experiences. So we've gone above and beyond our competitors in this space by providing you exactly why your user is not accessible anymore to you, either by a blatant uninstall or they just said, I don't want to push this from you, I'm going to turn it off. And this is, again, a great way to gauge the performance of your campaigns and your engagement factor with your customers. One of the other things Application Craft and Extra are working on are introducing mobile web push to end users. So we're talking much about the experience that you have in a native application, but our tool set also works with a HTML5 JavaScript-based application, so you can push send down a simulated push message to people who are actively using your mobile web application. And as you can imagine, this would also work on a desktop app as well. Our mission, of course, is to give you the tools in place to communicate your user wherever they are with whatever channel they're using to access your brand. And I think that's about it covers it today. This is just a final slide that shows you how Staples is incorporating both our native push and our mobile web push to direct specific deals to customers that are visiting their properties on different times of day, and provide you with a different display rules. Like after 45 seconds, I'm going to display a different user experience tab, or present you with an inbox itself after you've clicked on the promotion. So I think that's about it for my presentation today. Hopefully there's some questions that we can answer, and I hope you found this valuable.
Thank you very much indeed, Michael. Hazel, perhaps we've got a couple of questions. I think now's a good time for questions. Can we invite everybody to to type across any questions that they've got? Hopefully we've done a better job this time of incorporating content in there. That we had a lot of questions in the last one, and so we've slightly restructured the demo.
Yep, Freddie, I sent over a question from Tommy already.
Okay, let me just take a look at this. A phone that's been shut down and is started and in an area of location coverage, will it fire a detection? Does the app need to be started on the mobile? Well, in order to send out a location, the app must be running. You don't have to restart it or anything, but if your app is shut down, then it's not going to be in a position to send out any its location to the XDefi servers. So I hope that answers the question. It does need to be started on the mobile. Right, Hazel, is that the only question we have today?
Nope, I've sent over another one. I'll just send them all over to you.
Oh, have you? It hasn't arrived.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Why don't you send them all over? Then that's easy. I've only got one in at the moment.
Okay. Just don't want to overload you, but I'm sending them all over.
Okay. I've figured out now how to delete it properly.
It's the status of something, not the status in terms of time. That's what I'm.
Okay. I'm just.
I see it. So it's like,
okay. The next question is regarding the init part mentioned. Are you also using window plugins XDefi SDK start? Well, that's an interesting question. The answer is yes. Let me just go across to my code. The way we've actually built this API, I've called it an API. What we've done is normally our APIs are part of our APP object, but because this is slightly different, we've kind of starting to take the approach of including APIs as code that you can add into your app. So I'm just going to scroll to the top. So what you do when you actually, if you follow the user guide, is you install, you just plug this code in. So you just copy and paste it into a, here I've called it Xtify General. And for most people, they'll never want to look at this. But if you do want to see what's going on behind the scenes, if I scroll right down to the bottom, where is it? Let me go and find. So what you'll see for the init is, I think this is it here now. Yeah, so here is the Xtify XTK start. So what we've decided to do here was, because a lot of application craft users, they want to be able to get this thing up and running as fast as possible. We went through the pain ourselves, if you like, and then decided we would either let the users choose to access the Xtify API themselves directly, which is always a possibility, because that's all we're doing. So when I call Xtify init, this is what's happening. I'm kind of doing a few things to sort of simplify things to take care of the test situation, and then there is the Xtify SDK start. And then what we're also doing is Tommy, as you seem to know your way around this a little bit, rather than the data is different for Android than for iOS. So what we've done is we've kind of made one single data object, and we just pull, whether it's Android or iOS, we don't care. We pull it into that common object. So we kind of give it a slightly friendlier face for people who don't want to sort of roll their sleeves up at an early stage. But all of those functions, so here, for instance, is the getXID function. We call all of those things kind of at the right places automatically for you. So if I want to query what is the XID, all I actually need to do is we just set that then here to be xtify.xid. So you don't have to make any calls. You just, after doing the init, you just say what is xtify.xid and you've got it. So that's our general approach, really, is to put a front on the Xtify API for those who don't want to get their hands dirty too early or at all. Right. Next question. Can I fake or create a new XID when testing, or is that a real device's XID? No, you can't fake or create one. So you do need to have a proper one. So, but that's pretty easy. So all you actually do is you get your app installed somewhere, and then if you like, what I did in this demo app is we actually, here you can see I'm displaying the XID. So if I'm running that on a mobile device, that will be that device's XID. So now what I can do is, obviously, if it's running on your device, you can't copy and paste very easily. Or I suppose you can, but what we actually do is you just look at it on your mobile device. So look at that, and then you go to the Xtify console, which I'm going to have to log back into now because I've been timed out. And then back in the Xtify console, let me just sign in. What I do is I go to App Manager, and then Test Implementation. So if I go to Test Implementation, what that lets me do is it shows me all of the test devices, and I can send individual test notifications just to one. And I can also look, and there is the XID. So basically, I look at my mobile phone, see what is its XID, then I just copy and paste that out, go back to my desktop app, which is here, and then in the code, I stick that in here. I hope my screen is not going too far ahead of you, but there's that line. So I now copy and paste that XID, and from that point on, I can test everything on my desktop, and it will behave as if everything's coming from that specific mobile phone that I just looked at. So I hope that's enough detail or not too much. Do I need to hard code the application keys? Today I've configured that in the properties in the app. You don't have to, but what we actually, well actually I beg your pardon, you do have to. The reason that you do have to is originally as you saw, we had the stuff there in the Xtify phone gap plugin part, and we decided that actually that from a security perspective, we didn't want to be having too many keys floating around in the client, in the browser client. So we actually took it out, and what you can do is you can you can, first of all, not use this code, but you could put this stuff on server-side code, and we're probably going to do that fairly shortly, is to have server-side calls so that you actually can hide these keys completely. So the answer is for testing. Oh, no, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I'm thinking this is all slightly new even for me. But let me start again. For testing, you need to put them into the client like this. Okay, so you do, but then for production, you can remove them. If you leave them in here, obviously they will be visible in the client, and therefore, if you want to protect your application keys, you don't really want to do it. That said, you can decide how risky that is. And for production, you put it in the Xtify plugin, and there you paste them in. So when we actually build the apps, we take out of there the iOS key or the Android key and compile that into the app. So you should put those into the dialog, which is, just in case I'm losing some people, that dialog is the one you're seeing on screen, hopefully now, anyway, about now, the Xtify push notifications plugin. So yes, you should always put them in there. But for testing, you need to put them into your code as I showed you. So both. So I hope I haven't confused everybody. I confused myself pretty successfully there, but I think I deconfused myself. Next question. Am I allowed to target a list of xids in a specific location without knowing their email, phone number for marketing? I think I understand that question correctly, and the answer is, actually, do I understand that question? I'm going to read this.
I can take that one.
Michael, yes, please.
So actually, this also might be important for the first question, too, about location. There are a few ways that you can actually target a user by location. Number one, of course, is the persistent location update. So if a user has accepted that prompt for listening for your location updates, then of course you could target real time as people are moving about the geoplane. Another option where customers are starting to implement is tag-based locations. So we have some sample code on our developer website that we can introduce into AC that will enable you to, upon an action, take a sample of the user's lat long and what's called reverse geocode that those coordinates with the actual locality name, and then submit those as a tag. So, for example, if you wanted to target just a simple target campaign that targets everyone who was last seen in the New York City area, then if you incorporate that function, that tag association, then you can simply set up campaigns that says tag cities New York, and then you'd have an ability to segment those people who have been in that location over the past time. So that works with location turned off, with the application turned off itself. So if it's completely closed and you have that association in place, then you're able to send a notification in to those people who have been in New York over the past, based on the application left open. So that will enable you to do really both of those scenarios.
Michael, that's an interesting point. You mentioned the reverse geocoding. We actually have in Application Craft. So hopefully we can address this right now. We've got a Google Maps widget that you can drag into your app, and what that lets you, that comes with a whole sort of range of helper functions. So, for instance, here is get address. The get address function. You pass it in your latitude, longitude, which we can get out very easily. We make that very easy too, and that gives you back then the locality stuff. So you could take one of those locality fields and pass those as a tag into Xtify. I believe that effectively is a way of achieving what you just described, isn't it?
That's exactly what I was trying to explain. That's perfect. Okay,
great. Well, for those who are following all of that properly, yeah, if you Google the Google Maps widget comes with a get address method. That will get you from your coordinate the address, so you can do that pretty easily. Thanks for your help there, Michael. So, next question. Can I relate a specific person that has several devices and xids? Probably, Michael, you might want to chime in here. I'm just going to think about it as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. There's a few ways that customers do that. Most customers, like Discover Financial and Seamless Web, will require you to authenticate with their back-end system at some point. So when you log in with your username and email address, the developer at that point will capture their XID and create a one-to-many relationship between their internal UUID or email address with the XID and application key. In that way, the developer or marketer will be able to target one user across different platforms. You can also use tags for those purposes, but I would definitely advise not using any PII and transfer that. It would be best for you to retain that in your own system. But you would have to have some sort of authentication to bridge those two pieces of, two channels together, as it were.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Does Xtify partner with third-party developers to work with coupons, retailers, etc.?
So most of our retail customers already have a coupon provisioning provider, but we can make recommendations in terms of what coupon providers we work with and have success before, based on experience in the marketplace. So yes, there's quite a few that we can recommend.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Is the GPS data sent when the app goes into background on an iOS and Android? Steve, I'm not sure is the answer to that question. In fact, I'm slightly embarrassed to say I'm not sure because we got asked that same question on Friday. And I, as I said, I'm ashamed to say I don't know the answer. Hazel, can you get the whip out and make sure I get an answer back for that? What I will try and do is to actually put that into the documentation so that's available for everybody. So apologies for not knowing the answer to that, Steve. I should. Does the started callback routine called whenever a notification comes in on the device? Therefore, when the user clicks on the notification, our AC app will be opened and we can display the notification. Well, first of all, this is Dean. First of all, Dean, the notification will come in anyway. So your application doesn't have to even be started. If the notification goes out, the notification will be displayed. If they then click on the open button, let's say, then the started callback routine does get called, yes. So as soon as the app starts up, that callback function is called, and you do whatever you want with the data that's passed into it. Another question here from Tommy. Windows Phone support. Well, from our side, that's imminent, and I think, Michael, you will want to comment on it from your side.
Sorry, that broke up for a second. Could you repeat that question?
Windows Phone support. I was just saying that in AC Mobile Build, we're adding to iOS and Android, we're adding Windows Phone. Are you adding Windows Phone support for within Xtify? Yeah.
Absolutely. It's in development phase. We should begin formal QA at the end of this month or early February. And our developer beta will probably be out sometime mid-Feb.
Great. Hazel, I think it's all dried up now by the looks of things.
Yep. Unless anyone has any last-minute questions, we've still got a good 5 minutes to go. Tommy, if you have any more questions, feel free. Oh, you don't have any more questions.
Okay, well, we're not going to force everybody to stay on for the extra 4 minutes. It's nice to be finished within the hour. Oh, here comes another question. Costings, yes. Well, I think we had this last time. Michael, allow me just to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but Xtify itself allows up to 1 million messages, is it a month, to a maximum of 50,000 devices?
That is accurate.
And that's within their free plan, and then you start paying. But if you're getting that many, sorry, go on, Michael.
I was going to say, like, if you need support from us, then clearly we have to engage with the support plan, even if it's less than that. But developers feel free to use our services up to those limits.
Great, and I think generally, if people are getting that much traffic, they'd probably be very happy to pay something too. Those are fairly healthy levels, it strikes me. Right. Well, I think we've reached the end of the questions then, and so thank you all very much for attending, and Michael, thank you very much indeed for finding the time to tell us more about Xtify. And
you're welcome.
We'll be doing more developer clinics. Just if anybody who's interested in what's coming up, we've got one coming up on pass.com. We've added sort of a similar type of approach to push notifications for pass.com. And also there is a fantastic system which I guess if you're already application craft users, you'll know Intercom, which is a great way of adding user activity monitoring and engagement, messaging, emailing, automatic and manual to users of your apps. Strongly encourage anyone who wants to actually talk to their users and see who's using their app, mobile and desktop, to take a look at Intercom. It's a great system. So those are the next two that are coming up, and we'll be posting dates and times for those in the next week or so. So thank you again, everyone. Thanks for organizing it, Hazel. Thank you, Michael, and goodbye.
Thank you both. And just to let you know, the link of this recording is going to be sent in the follow-up email. So in case you want to go over anything again, feel free. Good night, everybody.
Your PC didn't crash under the weight of recording this time, Hazel.
No, everything worked perfectly. Thank goodness. So
okay, great.
Have a great night, and we'll talk to you all soon. Take care.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.